these children. And a little subheading is multiplying them. Is it dividing two or just multiplying? Just multiplying together, I guess. Oh, dividing two, sorry. Multiplying slash dividing. When you multiply decimals, children, when we add and subtract decimals, the little key phrase is to line up the decimals. When you multiply them, what is the key phrase? Again, there's no lining up decimals. Please don't do that. There's times when they'll actually happen to line up. Okay, but don't make a special point of lining them up when you multiply because it's going to just throw you off. When you multiply, Gary, you should. Yeah, but what's the key words, that phrase? The little. That's part of it is multiplying like there. Peter?
Count decimal places.
There you go. Count decimal places. Okay, in other words, this. Let's say you've got 0.82 times 0.3. Step number one is you multiply like there is no decimal. Multiply like no decimal. In other words, I'm going to multiply that like it's 82 times 3. That's the first step. Now writing it out, I still write the decimals in it because I don't want to confuse myself. You don't put the zeros there or whatever. Your digits are going to be the exact same, whether it's 820 times 3 or 0.82 times 0.3 or 0.0082 times 0.3. Your digits are going to be 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 8 is 24. I've got the right digits there. The toughest part in multiplication is figuring out where does that dreaded decimal go. And that's where this comes in. You need to count your decimal places. And you're counting the places that are to the right. In other words, here's my decimal. How many digits are to the right of this decimal here? There's 2. How many digits are to the right of the decimal there? There's 1. To give you a grand total of 3 decimal places that you need to have in your answer. Which means for step 3, you have to count back that many places. Count backwards, from right back to left. Right side to left side. In other words, you're starting here counting back 1, 2, 3 places. So your answer is 0.246. Okay, 2 decimal places there, 1 there. I can, even before I start the problem, I know how many digits should be to the right of the decimal. Okay. What I see people doing, I'm going to show you the not to do, so I maybe can emphasize this. I see people doing this, 0.82, and then they think that it's adding, and they go, oh, I need to line up the decimals, and then they put 0.30 there. Okay, and then now they're starting to add an extra 0 and extra places that you don't need in there. You can still do, by the way, you can still do the problem like this and get the right answer. Okay, except you can't do it like this and say, oh, my decimal goes here. You'd have to multiply all this out, and then this time put how many decimal places in? 4. Because you'd have to multiply through by the 0, put a 0 down because you get to this 3, you get your 6, you get your 2, 4, so now you end up with this, and now you've got to count 4 places, and it puts it way over there. You don't need to do any of that. Don't do any of that. Don't line them up. It's 82 times 3 and bam. How about this one? 0.06 times 0.3. Multiply that for me. 0.06 times 0.3. You should be done. I can tell you the answer right now. It's not a tough one. Kelsey?
0.018.
Correct. 6 times 3 is 18. You have to have 2 decimal places there and 1 decimal place there for 3. So you have to go 1, 2, and then you have to stick a 0 there to hold down the spot. So 0.018 is your answer. Or how about this? Here's one of my favorites. 3.2 squared. Or wait, yeah, let's do that one. Yeah, no, skip that one. Or how about this one? 0.5 squared. What do you get when you square 0.5? Squaring 0.5, a lot of times I get people telling me the answer is 2.5, 25. When you square 0.5, Michael, you get
0.25.
You get 0.5 times 0.5, which is 25 with 2 decimal places. 0.25. How about this one? What is 1.1, 0.1 squared? 0.1 squared. Grace?
0.01.
Right. 0.1 times 0.1 gives you 1, but there's 2 decimal places, so it should be 0.0. And the other thing I'd like to just throw at you is, if you have a decimal number, 3.6 times 10. Okay, those are ones you don't write these down, don't show your work on this, because anytime you multiply a number by 10, 100, 1,000, 1 million, whatever, that should be mental math for you, because if you start multiplying these out, you'll end up with the wrong answer because you have too many zeros to deal with. Because the simple rule is what? 3.6 times 10, 3.6 times 100, 3.6 times 1,000. My answer for those, Peter, would be for the first one?
36.
Yes, because however many zeros there are is how many places you just move the decimal to the right. This is 36. 2 zeros means you move the decimal 2 places. It's 360. You should love to see tens, hundreds, thousands, and millions because you don't need to do any work with those. Okay, this is times 1,000, so you move it 3 places to the right. 3,600. Okay, please don't write those out, because they just, for you to sit down and do this, 3.6 times 1,000, and then you got to try to keep all these zeros straight. And some of you can, some of you can't, but there's no need for it. It's just going to cause a whole lot more. All right. Now, what about division? We didn't talk about division. What is the with adding and subtracting, is line up the decimals. With multiplication, it's count the decimal places. With division, it is Gary?
You can't divide decimals into things.
What?
You just
I'm not sure what you said there, but I was looking for move up the decimal. Okay, which means this. If you have this problem here, if you have, let's do a couple and get harder, easier to harder. 0.48 divided by 8. And first things first, people, is please make sure With decimals, it can be confusing which one goes under the box and which one doesn't, because it really doesn't matter. Back when you were in 5th grade, the bigger one always went under the box, but that's not always the case anymore. So you need to know which one actually goes under the division box in this problem, the 8 or the 0.48. Okay, when you write them out in division form and they're written out like this, they flip-flop places. This becomes here, this becomes here. And then the word of the day is to move up the decimal, and that's exactly what you do. In this case, you move it straight up. In your answer, your decimal is going there. Everybody good at that? And then you got to keep your column straight. 8 doesn't go into 0. 8 doesn't go into 4, but 8 will go into 48 6 times. So you have to keep all of that straight when you're doing it. You did this in 5th grade. So, Jacob?
Do we need to have all those zeros, or can we just say 0.6?
Well, unfortunately, 0.6 is not anywhere near 0.06.
Oh,
If you got $0.06, you get 6 cents. If you got $0.6, you got 60 cents. So the zeros between after the decimal are important. The one in front, no. You can leave that one off if you like. But this one it's holding a spot that needs to be held. Okay. Now what about this? 0.48 divided by 0.8. Next step here. Still write it the same way. 0.8 divided into 0.48. But what do I need to do here? Christian?
Move the decimal to the right 2 places.
Right, it is never good to have a decimal out here. You've got to get rid of the decimal in the divisor. So it needs to be moved one place here. And whatever you do out here is you need to multiply or get this one place there. So now this problem really changes into 8 into 0.48, which means the decimal goes straight above its new home. 8 doesn't go into 4, but 8 does go into 48 6 times. So 0.6 would be your answer for that. How about, I'm going to give you one here. 0.5 divided by 0.004. Give you a second and see if we come up with the right answer there. 0.5 divided by 0.004. By the way, with decimals, if something is given to you in decimal form, you never have a remainder and you'll never make it a fraction. Your answer has to stay in decimal form. Just a small mathematical rule of proverbial tonnage. Whatever that is. First of all, let's hope anybody write it the wrong way. Alright, and then you move the decimal 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So really this problem changes into 4 into 500. That's really what the new problem is. The decimal would not go in the problem unless it be way over here, and it doesn't work out. 4 goes into 5 once. 4 goes into 10 twice, and 4 goes into 25 times. The answer should be 125.
Can we like leave the 0 about like before the 1?
Do you ever see a number? Do you ever see a 125 written with a 0 in front of it?
No.
Then that's a good case. Now, here we go. I'm going to flip it around and have you do this. This is 0.004 divided by 0.5. Some of you already did that. That was the very first point I made right off the bat, was make sure you put the right thing in the right place. So whatever you need to remind yourself of that, you need to do. Give yourself an example problem on, put it on the front of your math notebook so you make sure you get that right. What do you get for an answer for this one? 0.44, 0.004 divided by 0.5. We ended up with, Sammy?
0.008.
I believe so. 5 doesn't go into 0, so you have to put a 0 up there. 5 doesn't go into 4 after you bring it down, so you put another 0. Keep adding zeros till it works out. 5 goes into 40.008 times. Interesting little tidbit of information here. What would you get if I multiplied this number times this number?
0.0.
Anybody know why? And it wouldn't matter what two numbers. If I took 0.8 and divided it by 0.4 and then took 0.4 and divided it by 0.8 and got my answers and multiplied them together, I would get 1. Does anybody know why? Because anytime you multiply or divide something by its reciprocal, and that's what these are. Fractions flipped over, multiplied together. And then one last one here on the division. What about 3.6 times 10 to the 5th power? No, I'm sorry, divided by it. Wow. We were on division here. Once again, children, this is one, when you see it, you should smile because there is nothing easier than this. 10 to the 5th power is the same thing as 1 with 5 zeros after it. And the same thing is true with division as with multiplication. You don't have to do this out, you just have to move the decimal. But since you're dividing, multiplying means you go make it a bigger number and it goes to the right. Division means it gets to be a smaller number and you move it to the left. How many zeros do you see here? Wait, is that
There's supposed to be another.
Yeah. How many zeros do you see there? 5. So how many places do I move that decimal? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And add zeros for every place that doesn't get above. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. I don't think they'll give me one that's quite that goofy and long or whatever, but